So in today's video, I want to look at a plugin from XLN Audio, and it's called dB Drum Butter. This plugin has been made to enhance your drum bus. Obviously, you can use it on individual drums, you could use it on any instrument, it really doesn't matter. But its intention was to basically create an RC20 type plugin, but for your drum bus. It's less about going lo-fi like the RC20 plugin was, but it's a very similar and familiar looking layout, much like a lot of the XLN Audio stuff. When I first saw this plugin, I thought it had some really interesting and unique kind of processes, and I liked how familiar it was, like I just said, because I used RC20 a lot and I really liked it. This company have built trust within me, so I was quite keen to get my hands on it. I bought it myself. They haven't sent it me, unfortunately. It would be nice because I'm going to give you a nice review about it. But that aside, I did want to show it to other producers and songwriters and creators out there because I found this plugin to bring something interesting to my workflow. It's given me a new option when I'm just trying to get my drums to have like a more glued feel. Like, it just helps bring everything together sometimes, and drums are one of those instruments where sometimes things can start to feel a little bit detached or a little bit too dry, a little bit electronic, a little bit kind of pretend. And what this plugin does is helps bring everything together with a few interesting processors and a few interesting like modules, as well as some of the stuff that we've seen in RC20, like we can increase and decrease the magnitude, for example. But before I start rambling on, let's jump straight into the plugin. I've got a drum track loaded up that I've worked on before, but I haven't added any processing to the master bus yet. So for this video, I'm just going to focus on the master bus. I'm not going to go into how we could use it across all different instruments because you can see everything on the drum bus. So I'm just going to show it for what it's intended for, but you can use your imagination for how you might be able to get some interesting effects from this plugin on different instruments, even vocals. And I'm going to try it myself at some point, but I haven't had a chance to do it yet. But I really like it on drums, so let's take a look. So this is dB30 Drum Butter by XLN Audio. This is the interface that we're looking at. It looks very similar to RC20. We've got the magnitude fader up there, which is really useful. We'll look at that towards the end. We've got individual modules that we will be going through one by one, and then we've got like a master control section down here, which we'll look at the end. Here's a drum pattern I've pulled up from a track I was working on before, which has got nothing going on there right now. You know, there's a bit of mixing individually on all the channels, but really not that much going on there either. This is a pretty dry drum pattern that we've got going on. But I've gone for something quite busy. It's kind of got a little bit of drum and bass feel to it, but it's kind of not a typical drum and bass track. It's intended more to be a hybrid hip-hop drum and bass, almost like punky track. I'll play you the raw drums now to familiarize ourselves with the raw sound. So it's quite a busy drum beat. I've kind of done that on purpose. I picked this one for a reason because I feel like this will give us the widest scope for seeing the different things that we can do with this plugin. So we will start on the boom shack section. This is something that will enhance the lows and will add further detail to the highs of the input source, which is the drums. It's all intended for drums, but obviously we can use this on anything. Let's first look at the boom section. This is obviously hinted by the name, focusing on the low end. We can solo it so that we can get an idea of how it sounds. When I push play solo, nothing happens until I start pulling it up because we're only going to hear the effect that it's introducing. Now, if you haven't got headphones on, you won't hear that. So let me just bring out some colour. Let me start to get an idea of what's actually happening. Obviously, decay, that will be the length of the tail of the sound, shorter or longer. I tend to, you know, you could go there and make it long like this. But for this particular pattern, I believe that, you know, if it's too long, it's going to muddy it up too much because there's a lot going on anyway. So I'm just going to bring this back a little bit, and you can change the pitch of the sound that it's outputting. And you can do this to match your track, so that's really handy. I'm going to stick with E for now because that's not really what we're looking at, and it's quite a comfortable sort of pitch to listen to. This acid option just gives it a bit more of an almost like aggressive sound. And for certain styles of music, you know, that'd be really cool to introduce them harmonics that come in. Duck is a form of sort of side chaining. The input signal will trigger the generated signal so that it's not interfering with the transients of, in this case, for the most part, the kick drum. So you'll hear it dip at the beginning, it'll be less impactful. So for this, I just want a bit of colour. I'm going to unsolo it so we can hear it in context. When it's boosted like that, you can start to hear the tone and the note coming through of the E that we set. All I really wanted to do in this particular instance is just thicken up that bottom end a little bit, but you could get creative and make it like more of a note that you can build a track on top of. If I was to boost the decay, you'd hear that even more. And for certain styles of music, that would be really good. But for this, I'm going to keep it short, and I'm just trying to add a bit of meat to that bottom end. Let's do a bit of an A/B test on it. That's it on. And then if we look at the shack section, boom is the inner circle, shack is this outer circle in blue. Then we turn that and you see this changes up here. And this will trigger a noise sample based on the transients on the input. So you'll notice if we solo it, bring it up, that's catching a lot of the groove from the high-end stuff that's going on in the loop. And we can select different sound sources that it's going to trigger. Everything from sort of like vinyl crackle, and 8-bit sounds, static, crunch. There's a bunch of stuff in here, clap, tambourine, snare. But then we've got some really interesting ones down here. There's some cymbals there. But then we start getting to this section and we get this recycling sound, which is really cool. It's like really dynamic and experimental, but I can hear so many uses for where that would be like perfect. Same with this mechanical sound, sand, bubbles. Some really cool texture stuff that you can add to the top that just fizzle away and just give you a more interesting texture to play with if, you know, you feel like you're lacking that on a loop. Again, we've got the duck feature that is going to sort of sidechain the original signal with the new signal and the triggering of the sample. Obviously pitch, we can all know what that's doing. Just find a place that works. I'm going to switch this down to that recycling, which I thought was the most ear-catching for me and that I think will work well with this loop. The decay is going to dictate how much of that is going to then come through and how long it's going to play. Could just have it trigger at the beginning like that, or you could have it just be more textural like that. I think somewhere around there is working for this. Because it's such a busy loop that I've created, I don't want too much getting in the way. Tone, as you would expect, pulling it left is going to make it darker, pulling it higher is going to make it brighter. For this, we can probably keep it in the middle, but sometimes you might need it brighter or darker depending on how it works within a mix. I've got the envelope filter. And the resonance, so that's just giving it more sort of options, you know, by using filtering and envelope modulation so that you can just get a little bit more out of it if you feel like you need to poke it through a bit more with some more resonance. In this particular instance, it's not like overbearing, so I wouldn't do much with this, to be honest. Now if we pull it out of solo mode, that's it without. If I start to bring it in, just get a little bit more action in that top end. If I pitch it up maybe a bit so it cuts through a bit more. It's actually quite subtle, so maybe if I bring some of the decay out, we might hear it a little more. Obviously that's doing too much, kind of making it sound a bit messy, but it's nice to know that you can go there for certain types of drums that would really, like, I don't know, just give it a more interesting texture on those top ends. Like when the snare hits, you would get like these longer decays. I think it's really interesting, really quite unique to have it laid out like that. So I find that to be a really good module that, you know, even as a standalone plugin, that would be great. And then we move into this pitch section. So this, as you can imagine, it's going to pitch whatever is inputted into it. We've got an envelope here so that if you wanted this pitched effect to last for the, you know, if you wanted it to be full. We have this envelope section. We have either a frequency shifting option or we have a formant shifting option, or we can get a blend of both. Obviously you can pitch up or down. And I think the algorithm that is doing the pitch shifting in this sounds really good, really usable, and not kind of too intrusive or distracting. And again, if you switch it down to frequency all the way, you can hear like where the frequency is like peaking, whereas if you do it over to the formant, it's just a different texture and you can get a mixture of both. But I think this, you know, the formant sound is going to be a bit more beneficial to this because the frequency shift kind of brings out almost more of a note, more of a tone, whereas the formant is more of a feel thing. We've got the invert option, which is more effective on the frequency shifting. I'm not really sure what that's doing, but it's doing something. Oh, it tells us down at the bottom, it's inverting the direction of frequency shifting, and it doesn't affect the formant shift. So that makes sense. As you can see, there's a pathway that it's going on. No! No! This here is a formant stretching dial, and it's going to expand or compress the frequency range of the formant. I can't sit here and pretend I fully know what that means. All I know is how it affects the sound, as you can tell. And what really matters is how it sounds. And this kind of brightens it, that kind of dulls it. That's how I would describe it. Stereo. What that's doing is it's offsetting the left and right channels to create more of a stereo effect, which is cool. And this is like an envelope section where you're going to balance the transients and the sustain. So, you know, if you just want it to affect the transients and then return to where it was, you would have it all the way over there. If you wanted it to be like more consistent across the whole part and the whole section, you would have it all the way to there. Or if you want to find a balance in between, it lets you do that, which is really cool. I think for this, we want it just somewhere more towards the sustain because we want it to be quite consistent. I also feel like for this particular loop, I feel like it's more optimal to bring the shift down a little bit, and then we can take the focus off of the like kick drum by pulling away those frequencies so that the kick drum and those low end frequencies are less affected than the top end frequencies, where I feel like, you know, we could do with shifting down a little bit. Because that's almost bringing the kick drum down too much, pitching it down a little too much, whereas when we let the kick drum stay as it was, which was kind of in a nice place, it lets us create a softer, less harsh high end on this drum part without losing sort of like the directness? We'll go with that, the directness of the kick drum, which, you know, is already hitting in a nice area. So this lets us just sort of like bring those tambourines and those rolling breaks down so that they sit a little bit nicer and they're just a little bit less harsh. But it doesn't want to be too much, I think around there. Next, we've got this reverb section, which they're called space. Let's just blast it up and listen to some of the reverb sounds that are in there. It's like a boot, so it's like a short one. Reverse, that's interesting. That just lets you get a bit more creative. It tends to be towards the bottom of the list, you start to get some of the more creative effects. That's cool. Both of the spring reverb sound quite good, and I feel like they're hard to emulate digitally, so that's cool. Slap, I'm guessing these are going to be a little bit more delay-ish. Yeah, self-explanatory. Laser. Feels sort of modulated in some sort of way, which is interesting. Rumble, that's very low-end focused, almost makes you feel like you're outside of a club. You know, probably useful for some stuff, but I don't think it's something I would gravitate towards too much. I honestly quite liked the plate for this. And then you've got some of the traditional stuff you might see, like a decay. This is obviously going to bring the length of the reverb down. And for this demonstration, let's just go somewhere in the middle. And this stretch option again is going to change the length and the timbre of the reverb, just it's going to give it a different texture really. To the left feels a bit more roomy and a bit closer and a bit of a tighter space, whereas to the right, you're getting like a bigger sound. Then we've got pre-delay, which, you know, if we play it, not at the minute we're all wet, if we just go to like 50%, you'll hear classic pre-delay, you know, not much to say there. Duck, that's obviously going to be responsive again to the transient, so it's going to be dipping and ducking at the start of every time it's triggered. That creates that kind of sidechain effect so that it's not getting in the way so much. If you want to really let those transients through, that's going to benefit you a lot to use that. Width, you know, this is going to be some sort of width, I'm guessing pan width. Quite literally just panning. But then if we go up or down, that's going to affect the width of the reverb. So if we bring it, at the minute it's at its full width, but if we bring that down, you can hear that that's either widening it or making it really narrow, making it a mono reverb signal, which, you know, there's always different reasons to try different things. It's good to have that option there. Nice and easy to work with, really. Then again, this is the focus section, much like before. It's based on frequency. So if you just want this reverb to be affecting some of the higher frequencies and not muddying up that low end, you could just cut a lot of the lows out and have it just fizzle away on some of the top, and then get a balance with this knob. Not go too drastic with it, but at the same time I want to hear it, so somewhere around there is a pretty cool place to work with. Next we've got a compressor. Let me just slam it all the way up and we can go through. We've got a punch setting, a warm setting, a glue, a gentle, a smack and an OTT setting. We've also got downward compression or upwards compression. I don't use much upward compression. I don't know much about upward compression, I'm not going to lie. It's not something that I've experimented with much. I tend to use compression in a more traditional sense, which is obviously controlling everything above the threshold. So I'm just going to keep it there for now, but it's nice to have the option so you can experiment with it. We've got a mix wet dry knob. That's going to let us do parallel compression, which is really useful. And then we can either do single band compression, multi-band compression, or we can get a blend of the two. I'm guessing the multi-band compression, they've made a decision of how they're going to split the bands. And, you know, that's going to allow the kick drum to trigger a band at a different time to the mid-range and a different time to the high end, so that you just get a different behavior from the compression. And, you know, it depends on what your source input is. You might only use this on a kick drum where you've got a clicky top end and a boomy bottom end. So that's going to hit different based on the frequencies. You just have to experiment with it. For this, we've got the broad spectrum of it. So I think I'm going to fire it over to the multi-band. And then I'm just going to go through some of these. And at the minute, it's fully like maxed out. So it's going to sound quite intense, but we'll dial it back afterwards. I just really want to hear the characteristics of each setting. Punch. Smack, you're getting some of that more like distressor type nuke sound, and OTT is obviously going to be the classic OTT sound, just really pushed multi-band vibe. As you can see, when OTT is on, it just takes away the option to turn it to single band, and you get the classic fizzly thing that comes after an OTT compression, which, you know, I use OTT subtly sometimes. OTT is not really one that I would drive into like this, but it's got the classic OTT sound to it. So for this, I think I'm going to go for the glue compression because we are compressing multiple layers. It's quite a busy loop. I think it could do with a bit of glue. And I think somewhere like that, where it's just filling the gaps. I often think of glue compression like the cement around brickwork. And then we've got a saturation module, which, you know, saturation is a massive part of mixing and getting things to sit in a certain way. So let's just, again, crank it up. Brace your ears because a fully 100% saturation is going to be intense, but I want to bring it right up so we can hear the characteristics of each of these 6 different modes. We've got console, 4-track, tape, tube, digital, and flub. As I click through these, you'll see they've all got different changing options down here. And that relates to the type of sound that they're going for. So this is gonna, generally speaking, you turn it that way, it's the more bright and energetic version of saturation, and you turn it to the other way and you might get more of that crunchy, gritty style of saturation. I'll do a quick run through of each one and I'll show you the different options we've got for each one. I'll not drag on it for too long, I'm just gonna let you hear it. And if I think anything is worth explaining, I'll explain it. So I'm just gonna run through it now. This is the console one. So you can hear that choky one. It's like, it's kind of like stopping it. It's almost like gating it. It's just hitting it in a more, I don't know, it's almost like on a lower end, whereas the trashy one is kind of brighter and a bit more abrasive for the whole time, whereas the choky one is a little bit stop-starty. So bloom is a lot more like fizzly in the top end, whereas dull is more crunchy in those mid-range. It's giving like a metallic kind of mid-range, which is really useful for some stuff. Odd and even, I don't really know what it's doing, but you would just have to find a balance with those. It's like the difference between odd and even, honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not overly familiar with how tubes exactly work. I'm sure that it means something. Basically, this is a character fader, and each one is going to bring a different character. I think it's easier to explain with these two because digital, you're talking about sample rate versus bit rate type digital saturation. And they have real clear characteristics, like this is the bit rate. Very much like a bit crusher. This is the sample rate. You get that really degraded effect that you get when you reduce a sample rate on a piece of audio. Flub, this is more of a modulation selection, so you get like a ring modulation or a phase modulation. Again, 2 different kind of characteristics. That's that weird phasey sound. And that's that like spinny, out of control ring modulation kind of effect. And again, we've got these kind of like envelope graphics, which are relating to the transients versus the sustain. So if we wanted to just like affect the peaks, we would have it all the way over there. If we wanted it to affect the more overall sound, we would have it over there. Or we find a happy medium like we did before. And again, we've kind of got this frequency focus area where you can let certain parts pass through. Maybe you only want to affect the mid-range with this. Let's go to tape. Maybe we just want more of that mid-range cutting through and being more gritty. Something like that's really cool if I dial it back a bit. It just fills it out a bit in the middle because we've got a lot going on in the highs, a lot going on in the bottom. It just gives that snare a little bit more weight in the middle, which is really cool. And then we've got this more section. And the description of this literally says more is more. So without going into the manual and doing a deep dive, which is boring, I don't even want to do that. That's not the type of video that I'm doing here. This is more about showing how the plugin sounds, how you could practically approach it, and a bit of the mindset where you might use certain things rather than the technicalities of what it's doing and how it's doing it and what's under the hood. I'm not really interested in that. I'm bothered about how it sounds. So more, as you turn that up, just kind of like fucking blasting it. I don't really know what it's doing. And then you can scale this up ×2, ×4. So you can just really hit it hard, and then you've got this tone, which again, it's just affecting the tonal character. It just gives you more options in shaping the tone, really. It's a tone fader at the end of the day. And with this again, you might just want to affect the peaks and you might want to focus on certain areas. So let's just focus on the low end. Something like that's cool. It's kind of allowing it to be a bit more subtle, because obviously this section, if you blast it, it's really intense and it's just giving you that final room to just throw everything at it. But I think if you dial the settings right, it can be a little bit more subtle and really quite useful. So here obviously we've got an input, which is talking about the input that's coming in. Then we've got an EQ where you've got like your classic high pass, low pass filters, and you can adjust them a little bit by giving this a harder low end curve with a bit of a resonant peak, so that you're going to get, you know, you can make the kick drum cut through in that low end a little bit maybe, and then you can obviously make the high end a bit more steep, so you get a bit more of a drastic filtered sound. Just to give those a quick listen. That's nice and soft. This one's nice and soft also. So you can just gently roll some of that top end off, or we can sort of like boost it so we've got a bit of resonance when we're cutting off, so we can give that kick drum a little nudge. Somewhere around there is quite good, because you can cut a lot of that rumbly bottom end, but you still get a lot of the beef from the kick drum. And you know, maybe you want to cut a little bit of the highs off so that you've got some space for vocals or some other high end elements. You want a lot of it cutting through, but maybe, you know, maybe take it down to like 16. Just create that little bit of space up at the top. Then we've got this tone shaping section where you've got a classic tilt, or you've got like this attenuation boost, sort of, I guess, almost like a Pultec curve kind of thing, I think is what they're going for. And then you've got this mid-range focus where you can boost the mid-range or cut the mid-range, where then you're going to get, you know, as you cut the mid-range, you're going to get more emphasis on the high end and the low end, or if you boost it, you're going to sort of like reduce those sections and get more of that mid-range out of there. And then we've got like a mid-side focus tone shaping situation. How that works, I don't know. I'll just give you a little run through of how they sound. So this is the tilt. Classic tilt. This is sort of like the almost like Pultec-esque attenuate and boost feel. All just tone shaping. This one is the mid-range focus one, so we're gonna cut it and then boost it. Notice when we cut it, it brings up the highs and the lows a little bit, quite a lot actually. And then when we go the other way, we just bring out the mids, which is gonna put a little bit less emphasis on the highs and the lows. And for this loop, I actually quite like that. But while we're here, let's just check the mid-side one. You can hear that's doing a load of stuff in the stereo field. How exactly they are making that work, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how they're doing that, because both ways it kind of gets wider, but in different parts of the frequency spectrum. But it sounds good. But I quite liked it when we boosted the mids a little bit. And then we've got an air knob here, which, you know, we all know what air does at this point. It adds a bit of air to the track, a bit of that high-end fizzle, which sometimes you just need to bring it out, make it feel more alive. Really nice, seems like it's got a nice curve to it. This section, we've got like a classic transient shaping area where we can boost the attack and bring down the sustain, or we can go the other way. I think for something like this, if we went too much like that, it's gonna kind of like make it seem a bit too flat. And it's just doing a bit too much, but I think if we just kind of give the attack a boost and the sustain a little dip, we're going to get a little bit more choppiness, which is going to work for this because it's so busy. We don't want to lose those kicks and snares, which are the backbone, obviously, of the group. That's a more extreme example, but we will dial it back. I just wanted you to hear how it's going to work. Something like that's cool. We've got a clipper built in, which is useful and kind of standardized. You could turn that on or off, and you can affect that with the input, how much you're going to clip it. And then we've got an output, which is self-explanatory. That's just the output volume. And then we've got this magnitude fader, which anyone who's used RC20, you'll be familiar with that. It basically affects everything relatively, so that you know, it's quite common when you're using a plugin like this that you can kind of get lost in it a little bit and maybe you overshoot a little bit. Obviously, we're only listening to the drums isolated now because we haven't got the rest of the track there to listen to because we're just focusing on the drums. But very easy to overdo it because you get excited and you can turn something up and go, oh, that sounds good. But then actually in a mix, it can sometimes be too much. So the magnitude is really good at kind of finding that balance. But it's worth remembering, this changes everything, the percentage of everything, including the filter. So if you found a sweet spot with your kick drum there, and then you bring this magnitude down, it's going to affect the frequency down there. I'm unsure if we can lock that. There's a lock there, but I think that only affects the presets, but I'm not too sure. I would presume it seems like it's just going to move everything. So you'll notice if we pull the magnitude down, it's going to go back to the raw signal. So you can tell we're getting quite a drastically different sounding final result by applying all of these steps that we have. But you know, maybe we've gone too far. So let's imagine we did, and we want to get somewhere a little bit more of a happy medium. Maybe we want it at like 75%. I think that sounds pretty good. And now let's do a quick A/B. So as you can see, it's doing a lot and it's capable of doing a lot. And I honestly think this could be used on anything. Like, I can see how this could bring out a lot of bite in like a guitar or a bass. You know, you could set it so it's focused on the higher frequencies of a bass string so that when it's really being struck hard, it's going to trigger some of those sounds from the shack section earlier on, like that recycling. You could have it so that that just adds to the string sound. Obviously, we've got saturation and compression in there, which is always useful. We've got space, which you could, you know, apply that to a guitar group, some rhythm guitars. The pitch shift thing, I guess you could use anywhere and get experimental with that and just see how that would affect other things. You'd really have to just try it on stuff. I think it could be great on vocals, like, you know, even running the vocals through that more section. Maybe you could drive the mid-range of a vocal that's a bit thin. I haven't had a chance to use this yet on anything other than a drum bus, but I do believe that this is a massively capable multi-effects plugin. And just because it's called DB30 Drum Butter, it makes you think, oh, I can only use this on drums. But you've kind of got to forget about that because there's so much character on offer in this plugin that you can't just pinpoint it to just drums. I think this would be a plugin that would work amazing over so many different things. So I wouldn't limit myself, and I'm actually looking forward to using it on some other things. And maybe I'll do another video where, you know, I take this and I experiment over some other instrumentation. But that's all I've got to say about this plugin, really. I just really wanted to show people who were maybe already curious about this plugin and how it sounds and how it might sound on a practical level rather than, you know, a full spec breakdown or a sales pitch. Like, I bought this off my own back. It piqued my interest. I loved RC20, and this had a similar sort of like design and almost like form factor, digital form factor. So I thought I would get along with it, and honestly, I think they've smashed it with this plugin. It puts a lot of really useful tools in one place. And at this point, XLN Audio, they've earned my trust from RC20. I believe they know what they're doing. This is delivered again. I think, you know, this is one of my favorite plugins of the last year, and I would highly recommend it. And if you've kind of got any additional thoughts or anything, just leave a comment. I'm happy to like have the discussion about this because I think it's important to have the conversation around new tools because there's so many out there. It's easy to just get caught up in a whirlwind and like buy stuff. I know I'm buying random plugins all the time thinking, oh, this is going to be really good, and then it ends up just kind of sitting there and not getting used. This one has already proven to me it's like, oh, this is going to stand the test of time. The same way RC20 does. If I know I need a certain type of sound, I can go to RC20. I know what I'm going to get. This is kind of delivering on the same level, just offering a whole different selection of sounds. So I highly recommend it. So hopefully this has been sort of like a bit of a real world example of where you can use it in its most obvious form, which is on drums and on a drum group. And you know, I've shown you how you can push it. I've really tried to expose the sonic character of each section by driving it so you can hear how the algorithm and whatever is going on in the plugin, how that is affecting the final sound. So if you got something out of this video and you found it useful, please, you know, like, subscribe, do all the classic YouTube stuff. I don't like begging for likes and subscriptions, but it does help me grow the channel. And if there's any other plugins that you're curious about, leave them in the comments. I might already have them and I might be able to pull a video together for it. Or if it's something I'm thinking about and I know that someone's curious to see it, it may be something that I could get and do a video about it that way, because at the end of the day, I'm really kind of passionate on this channel about trying to give you some real world working examples of how you can use this, rather than all the spiel about the plugin. A lot of the times when I'm looking for stuff, people come with too much information and not enough producer mind talk, you know. I'm not the most techie guy, and I don't want to be the most techie guy. I want to be the most musical guy. And when it comes to plugins, to get musical, it really only matters how it sounds. So with that said, I'm going to call it for this video because I've got nothing more to say on it. I just wanted to show you a load of the features on there so that you could make your own mind up if you're umming and ahhing about this plugin. Like I say, I recommend it, so go and do with that what you will. And hopefully I'll see you again on another video. So until next time, see you later.